Yeah.
Right. Hello there, everybody. Welcome along. Oh no, sorry, the missus has just walked through in the background, and I want to see the shirt that she's bought. She's been to Cardiff. She's been back home and see family and friends and stuff. I want to see this because she's got a Welsh rugby shirt. No, that's the Cardiff Devils.
This is the hockey shirt.
Oh, that's the hockey shirt. That's a nice shirt.
I know.
Very good. Happy St. David's Day, dear.
Happy St. David's Day.
Which is the other reason why I wanted to mention that. Yes, if you are watching from across the border in Wales, happy St. David's to you. Indeed, if you're watching at all, considering that this isn't Sunday, and this is one of our incidental episodes, thank you so much indeed for tuning in. We've got two happening this week because we're playing catch up. Because we haven't had two episodes for the last 2 weeks because I have been decorating. I've been completely tied up, which means we do have a conversation to have with PJ Holden, who I'm very much looking forward to. We're going to be speaking to him tomorrow because he's got a new book out with Garth Ennis, which I managed to pick up the first issue of. And it's from Aftershock. It's a really nice kind of prestige format for Aftershock. It's called The Lion and the Eagle. Like I say, issue 1 is out now. If you get the chance, do go check that out because it's very much well worth looking into. Gorgeous book, as you can imagine, because PJ is an incredible artist. But Garth is somebody who knows his history. He likes exploring his history, especially in the kind of like the wartime kind of vibes. And yeah, hell of a book. Do check that out. But the conversation we're going to be having today is with somebody who I don't believe I've actually spoken to before. So I'm really looking forward to this. We've kind of communicated on the old social medias and on Twitters, and we've also showcased him on the Convention Collective. If you want to read his answers to some rather probing and deep and insightful questions, which we put to Russell, do check out Sandbox Spotlight on the conventioncollective.com because Russell did a cracking job of answering some great questions on that. There we go. As always, this is your show, so do dive in with any questions you have to Russell, but we'll do the intro first and then we'll dive in. Looking forward to this. This one, I think, is going to be a bloody fun show. Hello there. Welcome along to Talking Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. My name's Leonard Sultana, and every Sunday we talk to some interesting people and do all the con news and dive into the world of Comic-Cons. It's not Sunday, so this is one of our incidental episodes where we kind of dive in and we kind of allow a little bit more time to talk to a specific project and a specific creator if possible. And we've got two happening this week. We've got one happening tomorrow on Wednesday, the 2nd of March, as we talk to PJ Holden about his new project, Lion and the Eagle, which he's created with Garth Ennis. But we've also got ourselves a very special guest, which we have been wanting to talk to for at least a couple of weeks now. But thanks to some interesting distractions, not more than 2 floors above me, we haven't been able to do this. So it's really great that we got the chance to speak to Russell Nohelty. How the devil are you, Squire?
I'm good. How are you doing?
You know what? Now that I'm home from work, I've got myself a huge, yeah, the big cup of tea's come out. The big cup is out. That's the kind of day I've had, and the kind of week I've had. But no, I've got my brew to hand. Have you got yours? Because that's usually one of the first questions I put to my desk. Have you got your cup of tea to hand? Ah, okay, fair enough. He's yeah, you've got
A
beverage.
rather large cup myself.
Fair enough.
I've already downed one already today for breakfast. So,
well, you know what? You're more than you're happy to have as many cups as you like, if anything, just to kind of keep the neurons firing, because the Kickstarter campaign that you're running at the moment, I can imagine is getting you, keeping sleepless nights and also kind of driving you forward at the moment. So we'll talk about that.
yeah, it's I've done this 21 times before, and I think once you do it so much, like there's things that you expect, but you're still very nervous. Like we have a $30,000 goal, which I've never done before. Like the first time we did a Cthulhu book, our goal was $20,666, which we would have hit already. The second time it was 25,000, which we would almost be ready to hit. But like 30,000 is just like, it's such a big number, and I've only done it 2 times before that I still have been very, very nervous. Like I don't get nervous for most of the campaigns, but these big ones, especially with like the money of 75 people on the line for it, because it's paying out all the creators and everything. Like it's a lot to like have on. But the team's been awesome. We reached $20,000 that first week, which was my sort of stretch goal. And we're cruising along. So I'm very, very pleased with how it's going. But yes, it's still nerve-wracking. I'm still looking at it 10 times a day, even though I only say I'm going to do it once.
I don't doubt it. I mean, I think that's actually probably the first way that I came across your work is through a Kickstarter campaign. I covered, supported several of your projects. A massive fan of the work that you do.
Thank you so much.
No, I think it's through the Kickstarter stuff that I kind of got to know your name and how I kind of our paths kind of crossed. First things first, I asked the 3 questions. Let's do the 3 off the bat. Number 1 is you've got your beverage to hand, so that's all sorted. So that's good. Number 2, because this is ostensibly a Comic-Con conversation show, we will ask, do you remember your first Comic-Con? And not necessarily San Diego Comic-Con. Let me just clarify that. Just like the first con that you went to. And did you go as a pro?
I did. It was 2010, and it was... I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it was San Diego Comic-Con.
Wow.
There's a show
you
here.
And I went to the same con together. It's the same San Diego together. Oh, okay.
Yes, I had a little. I had a sheet, an 8-page sample of my book, The Wannabes, that I was pitching around. I had no idea what an ash can was, so I literally just had it printed on like paper and bound in like it was a book report.
Nice.
I pitched. I was like bringing it around to publishers. I had no idea what I was doing. There's a little show here in Long Beach called Long Beach Comic Con, and I may have gone to that beforehand, but I'm pretty sure that San Diego was the first time, because I didn't even realize that like you could make independent comics before then. My manager had brought this to my attention, that you could just make comics, and I read them and I fell in love with like what people were doing with indie comics. Like this was 10 years ago, and so it was like even less than people are doing now. And I went off talking. I pretty much immediately was like, well, now I'm doing comics now, and started doing comics. So I think it was that one. Pretty sure.
Yeah. I mean, as shows to start at, I think first to dive into. I mean, I usually recommend when people have asked me in the past about what would be the kind of what it would take to actually make an impact at San Diego Comic-Con, and it's very difficult to kind of advise on that regard, if anything, because it's very large. It's anybody that wants to kind of make a splash in that ocean of an event. It's something that you have to have something very special, and that's what certainly with the Kickstarters that I remember you had those. So that's number 1. Number 2, obviously at those shows you do get the chance to come across people that you've admired, people that perhaps you've wanted to speak to but have never had the opportunity. They're there in front of you. Have you ever had a wobbly knees moment? That kind of where the mouth goes a little bit cotton mouthed and the brain takes a left.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw Mike Mignola at a con, and he was just sitting there. He was just standing there, and like it was nothing, like talking with someone at his table. And I was like, oh, you just can do that. Like it's just there. It was great. I mean, I had so many of those at that convention. Like the whole time I was wobbly kneed for everybody, because like to me they were all like the celebrities, like everyone from like the Artist Alley to the small press and like everyone around all of that. It was all very special experience that I got wobbly kneed at many times.
I seem to remember because it was, like I say, first con, that was my first con as well, 2010 for San Diego Comic-Con. And I came in through the above Hall H line. So the far end of the room. So I came in to the hall through Artist Alley, and I was jazzed to be there for a preview night. Dived into the room. I was about to go and kind of get to a line which I wanted to get to, and the first thing I did was go, "Holy shit, that's Jeff Darrow!" And I literally just screeched to a halt, and everyone just piles past me. So they're the ones that got in front of me in the line, obviously. But I just went, holy crap, you're Jeff Darrow and you're just there. Hi. And just sort of like spoke to Jeff Darrow for about 10 minutes and just completely fanboyed out. Absolutely. Yeah. I know. I understand that literally from the moment you walk through the door, there's those people that you admired. So that's great. Mike Mignola, that's a name to drop. Excellent. I think just so people may not be aware perhaps of you, I mean, if you are somebody that follows Kickstarter comics and also independent comics, you may know who Russell is. But I think it's only best that we have a bit of an introduction to you for those that perhaps may not be too aware of you. So, Russell, if you can give us kind of like a Cliff Notes to Russell Nohelty, please.
Sure. So I'm a USA Today best-selling author. I've made all of these books. I'm best known for my book Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, which is a horror fantasy comedy comic about a psychopath that escapes a mental asylum and becomes a monster hunter and doesn't know if he's killing monsters, humans, or it's all in his head the whole time. I'm also known for the Godsverse Chronicles, Katrina Hates Dead Shit, and Pixie Dust, and now Black Market Heroine as well. But probably if you know of Wannabe Press, you know of my series Cthulhu is Hard to Spell that I edit with Chris Simon, which has 2 volumes out already. The third one's on Kickstarter now, and it's had Paul Jenkins and Trina Robbins and Megan Hutchison and Ray Anthony Height, and just 107 different stories from just a ton of creators. Each one's got at least 34 stories inside of it. And it's basically monster stories about the gods and monsters of the universe, from cute to scary and everything in between. So you'll see very like Lovecraftian stories, like in the traditional Lovecraft, like cosmic horror, kind of suspense noir kind of vein, and everything. Also, you'll see stories like Ornan Numqua and Marriage Counseling, or like Yig and Medusa summoning a demon dog, and everything kind of in between. So it kind of spans the realm of things, but they all focus on the gods and monsters themselves, which is something that we thought was lacking in the Lovecraftian conversation.
I appreciate that. I mean, you talk about the books that you're famous for and that you're known for. For myself, I mean, Pixie Dust is certainly a highlight for myself. And you can even in that storyline and that where you were pitching very much slightly more to a younger audience with that book. I mean, what you did with Cthulhu, I mean, it's bridging various gaps there, and certainly with the real strength of Lovecraftian storytelling. I mean, when did Lovecraft really kind of grab your attention? Was it very young, or was it a little bit later on in
No, so we did a book called Monsters and Other Scary Shit, 2017, and after that, I knew kind of Lovecraft, but I was not like a huge fan of his work. Fans said fans said they really loved Lovecraft and they'd like to see us do a book on that thing. And I really dove into it. And what really struck me about Lovecraft when I started really researching him is like he's influenced everything that I've ever loved in my life. So he everything from The Abyss to Jacob's Ladder to In the Mouth of Madness to like cartoons to like everything has a little bit of like Lovecraft in them, to Stephen King books. And just so that's what I really what really resonated with me was not that I don't love Lovecraft's world, although I wish he did more with the Dream Quest stuff. But what really attracted me to the lore was how it is so easily, how it is so malleable to so many different kinds of retellings of them. And that's really kind of what the series became, retellings and people kind of remixing a lot of what Lovecraft did to tell different kinds of stories.
I mean, I find it interesting that you say that you hadn't really investigated Lovecraft till 2017. So it's real evidence that you've kind of had Cthulhu and the Lovecraftian world kind of like percolating in the background through pop culture and the stuff that you love. It's kind of you had a backdoor sort of like introduction to the whole mythos, as it were. It's interesting, that I think.
Yeah, and you know what the thing about Lovecraft is, he has a very high bar of entry for enjoying his work, because he expects you to have read everything he's ever written, and so he will tell. So my favorites is like Azathoth, which is my favorite, the idiot god. The whole universe dances in his mind, and if he ever wakes up, the universe will collapse. And like, he just talks about that in like one paragraph in one book and just expects you to know that that's a thing. And so you find all of these gods based upon, what story you're reading, but they don't like translate to other stories. And they're such a small part of the universe, because the general way that Lovecraft stories goes is like a creepy person goes to a creepy town, meets a creepy cult who wants to do creepy things, and like so the gods are like the last 10% of the book, if they even exist. And usually it's like the door opens and everything and everything is destroyed. So you don't really get a sense of like the mythology. And if you follow my work, the thing that I really love most is the mythology of like Greek, Roman, Judeo-Christian. And Lovecraft's mythology is one of the most interesting, because it's like the one mythology that has withstood 100 years that is not based on a religion. So like, just the fact that it's not based on a religion and gives kind of just a different way that gods interact. In almost every mythology, gods, like humanity is central to the tenet of gods. Like, they care very much about humans. And Lovecraft's mythology is so interesting because they don't. And like, it paints a very stark contrast to this other universe. But Lovecraft, he didn't even focus on the mythology himself, and no one has really come along except for the Call of Cthulhu people and really done like a deep dive into the mythology. And look, I love role-playing games, but like, it's very dry to read the stats of every god in like the thing. So we wanted to do it in a more fun way. But I think that the fact that I found Lovecraft late, and I found him through kind of all of the remixes that have happened over my life, gave me a little more latitude to think differently about how to put the book together than other people who generally, when you read a Lovecraft anthology, like, they are very reverent to the original text and very reverent to the way that those books are set up, even though like Lovecraft wrote in the way that he wrote because his books were published in serials. And the reason that the stories often feel very similar is because they came out in serial magazines that were pulp mystery or pulp horror things. So they all worked in the same way, but very few people have like remixed that in like to make it longer or bigger or different. And I think that there's such a rich mythos. Like, the mythos is so rich with mythology that like you could do so much with it. And I love that that these anthologies have allowed you to say, here's Lovecraft's story. We have Lovecraft stories and the way Lovecraft told them, like very much similarly, like kind of the suspense, horror, detective noir stories.
Yeah.
But we also have all of these other stories that you probably would never know. Like I tell people my favorite story is the dream quest of Unknown Kadath. And they're like, I didn't even know there was a dream realm in like Lovecraft's work. And I was like, yeah, I know, because he wrote like 2 books in it or 1 book in it and then never talked about it again.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually really curious about, because I mean, we're going to dive in a bit to the creators that you've got involved, because like you say, you've got some incredible people that have written stories for you. But like you say, Lovecraft fans, they're a special breed. They don't just like Lovecraft. They don't just like the mythos of Cthulhu. They don't just casually enjoy it. They're in, and they're in all the way. And like you say, the way that you came at the story and the way you came at the mythology allowed you some latitude, is the way you described it. Were there any of the creators that you had involved that just went, no, this is the way it needs to be, because this is a thing. This is some, yeah.
I definitely tried to people who didn't get it, like who didn't want to get it, and they thought that I was not being reverent enough to the source material, and but I found that most people who like Lovecraft are actually very pliable, simply because Lovecraft has not been popular. Like Lovecraft has been a huge influence, but his work has not been popular in the overall world.
I'm wondering if that's also to do with Lovecraft himself, because there's a lot of his attitudes and morals which do rub people up the wrong way.
Yeah, and that's a whole conversation that like I've had a bunch of times about this book, and I do think it's partially that. But fans of Lovecraft have had to seek out other things that are Lovecraft adjacent, that like are influenced by Lovecraft, Stephen King books or The Abyss, or we talked about, or In the Mathematics. These things that are like not quite Lovecraft have been remixed for a pop audience or something. So I think that they are uniquely malleable to like the idea of like what we're trying to do. But often we did go seek out creators. Like I'm not going to say we didn't. Like we did have an open call, but we did go to many creators and say we'd like you to work on this. And I found that it was easier not to go to people who love Lovecraft's books and like then ask them to do something that was different. It was easier to go to people who did a different kind of books, like my friend Kelsey Jo Silva or Mary Bellamy or Angela Odling, and say, here's a bunch of mythology that I think is really cool. Like, I would like you to create something in this mythology. And that is the constraint. The constraint is there can be no sex, no blood, no cursing, nothing, no violence you wouldn't see on Saturday morning television. That's the constraint. It has to be in the mythos. You have to use at least one god or monster or something. They can be or you can create your own that kind of would fit in this mythos. But that is the rule. And you can make a slice of life story. You can make a comedy story. You can make a cutesy story. You can make a very sad story. You can do anything you want, but that is the frame. And that was one of the beauties of the Lovecraft of these books, is I could bring in people who wrote slice of life books or comedy books or something, and they could have a voice in this thing, because one of the whole points of this was Lovecraft has influenced so many things. Watch creators do these very interesting things with Lovecraft's base premise of the mythos.
Were there any creators that you were surprised didn't either hadn't read Lovecraft as much as you thought perhaps they had? I mean, I was surprised. I mean, you got Trina Robbins in your in the creators list, and while I get it, I mean, certainly some of the early Wonder Woman stuff, and certainly some of the books that she did in the late mid-70s, there's some vibe there, but I would not have gone hardcore Lovecraft fan there. I mean, was there any fans, any people that you just were surprised at how big they were as a fan, or indeed any those that you thought, oh yeah, well of course they're heavily influenced, they're going to be massive Lovecraft fans, and they perhaps wasn't. Was there any surprises?
I was surprised we got anyone. I'm not gonna I'm surprised that like anyone. I'm every time that I go to someone and I'm like, hey, here's my weird idea, and they join me. I think that is like wonderful, but I'm always surprised. I'm always like, thank you, and I feel very like. But the person in the first anthology, I thought Megan Hutchinson, who does like Will o' the Wisp and a lot of dark stuff, would be like a huge Lovecraft fan. And when she told me she'd never read Lovecraft, I was pretty surprised. She did a great retelling of the Cats of Ulthar from the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadeth, and she did the story. And then I told her, I was like, the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadeth is like not it's like for by Lovecraft standard, like it's a happy-go-lucky time. And she's like, you told me this was not going to be a sad story, and it is so sad. And I was like, I'm sorry. Like it is. They're all like his premise is like the world doesn't matter and nothing matters, and like nobody cares about you. So like in that, like everything is going to be kind of a bummer. But so yeah, that was the one that really surprised me. I'm surprised that a lot of like the people who like do slice of life stuff, like Kelsey or Mary, like came along for the ride. Like I'm surprised people that worked outside, that they have nothing to do with this part of it. I haven't had a conversation with Trina, but like I know that in the 60s and like the back when she was working in comics, like Lovecraft was a huge influence on the whole horror line that comics do. Like, you know, the Tomb of Dracula, all of that stuff. Like there's always been like a pretty heavy Lovecraft influence in comics, going back to like when Robert E. Howard was doing, like when they because Conan had like Lovecraft in them, and like they kind of all went together. So I'm not surprised when anyone in comics loves Lovecraft. I'm very pleased, and I'm very pleased with Trina's story, because Trina's story with Leonie Moore is like so different than the story I thought she was going to produce. She produced this story called The Date with Cthulhu, which was like a romance comic, but if the premise was the girl calling her best friend to talk about her terrible date with like Cthulhu, who did all of the Cthulhu things that you would expect someone to do on a date.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. I'm really surprised by Megan. That I'm, because if there's any, like you say, if there's anybody I would have assumed maybe a little bit too much that would have been into Cthulhu, it's her. Also, she's not well at the moment. She's had a bit of a spill. So yeah, wishing Megan all the very best. Take care, lass. So the project itself, I mean, this is the third volume of the anthology. Cthulhu is Hard to Spell. Well, it's the three anthologies as part of the Kickstarter, and like you say, I mean, it's a hell of a roster of people involved that you've managed to pull together. But I'm just curious: is there that way of the moment when you have to balance between what it's going to actually cost to put the book together, and then having this kind of devil's row of talent that's available and that have said yes, that they're going to they'll be up for doing a story for you?
So there's one
where you have to just go, I have to cut this short.
So we got to our cutoff's usually 160 pages roughly. We got to about 190 pages that we had committed, and I always try and overfill it somewhat because some people drop out in every book for a litany of reasons. I think we had like 20 pages or so drop out, and we had something like 995 or 200 pages. And I talked to Chris, and Chris is kind of responsible for getting like a lot of the heavy hitters, like Christian and Paul and Trina. A lot of them all came from Chris Simon and her and her work in comics over the years. And we sat down and we had the list of the ones that were all like good enough to put in. And I was like, I think we should just do them all. And she's like, I was like, the book's going to be so expensive to make, but like, I think we should do them all because this is the last one. And I don't like leaving any good story on the cutting room floor if I can help it. And so we had to leave. There are some that were like, that are like on the fence. And it's hard when you're doing submissions because it's hard to know what the pitch is going to be compared to what the end story is going to be. So for instance,
that's the next question I was going to ask, is about that kind of the expectation of what.
So I'll give you an example of Travis Gibb did a story for us last time, another Cats of Ulthar story. And I didn't accept it into the anthology, and he went and produced it on his own. And then he was going to like put it somewhere. And I was like, whoa. When I saw it, I was like, oh, like the pitch that he had wasn't banal. It just like, it didn't have the zip. Like it didn't have that like little twist. It didn't have the thing, but the execution of it was really good and like great. And like, I love the execution of it. And part of the reason we didn't take it in, I was like, oh, we already got a Cats of Ulthar story. Like how many Cats of Ulthar stories can like one anthology series have? But when I saw it and I saw how we executed it, I was like, oh, I get it now. And so I know that of the ones that we accepted, there are some that you see like if it had been executed and I had just seen the final, I'd have been like, oh yeah, that's in. And some that like I may have should have accepted. And it's all just taste. So like, I'm not saying that the ones that we accepted are like quote unquote the good ones or anything like that. Cause there was a lot that like had the same concept, especially this one. Cause like the main theme was wrestling. The cover was like a wrestling theme. And like everyone wants to do a wrestling, even when I tell them we already have a wrestling story, don't do one. And this one, I said, I am writing a wrestling story and I am the editor. I'm going to be in the book and I'm not going to do another wrestling story. I'm not going to do 2 ones. We've already done a couple throughout the course of the book. I still got like a half dozen wrestling pitches. No, maybe probably more wrestling. And I was like, well, like these are all just out. I'm not even going to look at them. They're all just immediately out because like I'm not doing another wrestling story. That's just one example. A lot of times there's this sort of parallel thinking where it's like, here are 2 artists who had a similar idea and like you have to make like a gut call, and it might be like, you know, this artist is going to deliver and you're not quite sure about this artist, like that you just like this person. And sometimes it's like, oh wow, like this person's never been in my book before and I really want to work with them, and I've worked with this person before, so I'm going to pick this person. Like there's 1,000 reasons why you make these gut calls. But we had like a murderer's row of creators on this book. And I said, we had like so many books and we were like, well, who are we going to cut? We're going to cut this person and that person or this person or this person. Or like, we can cut these 4 stories or like these 2 stories. And it finally got to the place that we were like, there's a part where it becomes painful to cut. Yeah. It becomes, there's a little bit of pain. There's like a level where it's a little bit of pain, but bearable. And there's a level where you're like, this is too painful. Like I can't imagine the story without these people. And sometimes it meant going back to people and saying, I will let you in this anthology, but you only get 4 pages. And that's part of the thing of like the story, because some of the submission process is like their story or art style just is not, I can't give 8 pages to it. Like I can't give. This is my number one thing for creators is there are like if you get like 1 to 10 pages, let's say, like the editor is going to accept very few 10-page submissions because it's very hard to keep people's interest for 10 pages. And you have to leave that to the heavy hitters and like the people that you know are going to deliver. Like I gave 3, I gave 3 8 pages, I think. I gave 2 or 3. I gave 1 to Johnny C and Kara Stemo because they were doing the 3rd part of their trilogy that's been in each book. They wanted 8 pages. And I was like, can you do it in 6? They're like, I really want 8. And I was like, I think that was one of the 8. That may have been a 6th one. Then I had one by Nathan Luth, who's been in our anthologies like forever, and he wanted 8 pages. And I went back to him and I was like, you really need 8 pages? And he was like, this is going to be so wordy, because it was a battle between Lovecraft and Tolkien. He's like, this is going to be so wordy anyway. Like, if I can't get 8 pages, like, you don't even want to see the pages. I was like, okay, you get 8 pages. Then the third was David Pepose, who is on Savage Avengers and Moon Knight. So like, those are the people that I gave 8 pages to. And like, I did not give 8 pages to anyone else, even if they asked, because like, that is the level of like trust I have to have. Because while a 2-page story, I mean, you can accept a 2-page story that's like kind of just okay, because it's 2 pages. You can't accept an 8-page story that's not going to be a heavy hitter. Like, you just cannot do it. So, and I also knew I was going to have 12 pages, because my story takes place at the beginning, middle, and end of the anthology as you're having this big wrestling match. Like, I couldn't do a lot of big stories. Meanwhile, so like, it was a lot of like, man, this is good, but it's like 2 pages good. It's like this concept is like 4 pages good, or like, this art style is really cool, I like it, but like, I can't give this art style 8 pages, because like, I don't think fans are going to like be in for 8 pages with this particular art style, like my fans, even though I love it.
That's a real kill your darlings kind of moment. Wow.
Yeah, and sometimes, and you will go to people and you'll be like, can you cut it? And they'll be like, no. And be like, then you're not in the anthology. Sorry, like, that's the thing. And like, I try and get as many people involved as possible. But like, if you can get 2 pages in an anthology, like, you're probably going to get in. I accept about 80 pages, 80 to 90% of 2-page pitches, because like, it's 2 pages. Like, and if you're a young creator who like doesn't have a lot of experience, like, getting those 2 pages. And the first anthologies I got into were like 1 pages. I was like, I know it's 1 page, even if they hate it. Like, how much can they hate it for 1 page? Like, they're going to need a filler page here or there or somewhere else. Like 2 pages, 3 pages, like these shorter stories, like you're almost in a different class, because and especially if you don't know, even if I don't know the editor, like if I don't know the editor, still now I've done dozens of these stories. I still try and keep it short, because I know they're going to need filler stories between their big stories. And I know that it's going to be, and I know also that my artist is going to prefer doing 4 pages than to 8 pages, because like, it's just less work for them. So yeah, a lot of it is, I don't even know what the questions, but like part of it is like, killing the darlings is we had this story that was like, we have like molded things so we could like, we had 2 good 6-page stories that we couldn't do, but like, we could get 2 4-page stories in. Like, we'd done all of the haggling, and like, we were down to like 195 or something pages. And finally I was like, Chris can't do these anthologies anymore. I'm not going to be the editor of the anthologies anymore. I'm like, I'm not going to like nickel and dime 20 pages of people that I really want to work with in this anthology. And so we ended up just accepting all of them. The one thing I won't do when I go back to someone is I won't say, there's already a story like this, can you redo this? Can you give me a different pitch? Because I don't think that's fair. No, I think that it is fair to say, so a lot of people didn't get into this anthology because there was already a story like them. And like, I don't think allowing them to resubmit a new story is like, that would be nightmare for me. I'd be dealing with this forever. But I will say, hey, can you twist it a little bit this way? Or like, can you make a little bit of a bigger hook? Or like, do you really think you're going to deliver this book? And then, so yes, I there is a moment where I on every anthology just say, let's just accept everyone who's left, because it's just too, like, these are supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be like hanging out with your friends. And like, I don't want to be like, no, you're not invited to the party, I wanted to do that to as few people as possible.
Sure. I'm curious if the Brit creators or the European creators who had the discipline of working on something like 2000 AD, where it is all about the efficiency of as small a page as possible. The whole idea of doing the future shocks in 2 pages, and knowing to cut it down and to pare it down so you can make it fit I'm curious if they kind of suited the sensibility of the anthology that you were wanting to put together better. I'm curious about that. We do have some questions that have come in. Thank you very much indeed to everyone for watching today. We've got ourselves Toby who's watching, and I think we kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier. Curious, there is or was a tabletop role-playing game based on Cthulhu and Lovecraft. Was that an influence?
Absolutely. So the Chaosium, I think, is the company, but the Call of Cthulhu is kind of the only company that consistently deals with the complexity, like the mythology, the complexity of the mythology. Like some writers have picked it up, like the ball sometimes, but like Chaosium is really the Call of Cthulhu company is the one that has consistently been vocally about the mythos part of this. And so and like others have been stalwarts and stewards of the Lovecraftian style and the Lovecraftian kind of storytelling myth. But I think it's hard to be focused on the mythos and not have Call of Cthulhu be like kind of the Bible that you're going off of, because again, I'm not saying that there are books that focus more on the gods, but the idea of the gods is that they are unknowable and they will make you mad if you look upon them. So it's very hard to like, you can't pair a god with a human or anything. And like the gods are just off doing their own thing. So usually they are just like a thought in these books and in the way that Lovecraft designed them. So it's hard to look at any of the previous books that have come out and see anything that doesn't like just hint at the mythos parts.
Yeah.
In the way that like horror hints at aliens and stuff most of the time. Like in Aliens, like you normally don't see the aliens; they're like off screen for the most part until like the end or this. Chaosium or the Call of Cthulhu company is very much an influence and kind of, to me, the pioneer of actually going into the mythos. And what we wanted to do was create kind of a guide that is not, I mean this in no disrespectful way, it's just all role-playing game guides are dry. Like some of them, even like at some point, even if they have like really cool like text in them, at some point it's like Shoggoth, hit points, these are the stats for this thing. So we wanted something to be more alive, and we were able to, in the first anthology, do like the origin myth of the Lovecraftian universe and do things like Ornanumqua are like the Ross and Rachel of the Lovecraft universe. So like we had a story of them where you like, is that actually like, would that actually ever happen in canon? Like, I don't know. It's all canon. So like, to me, these are things you can, like, we wanted to show that is the relationship. Like Ornanumqua have that kind of contentious relationship that needs marriage counseling. But like, it probably didn't happen. Like it probably would not happen like that. In this new one, Camry Lapka did a story of Shub-Niggurath, the Black Goat of the Woods, and the story was just like a hunter, like a cryptid hunter, turns around and she's holding all of a picture, like her wallet open, and say, "Do you want to see a picture of my children?" And like is like that probably would not happen again. Like, but like the context is, she's got a lot of kids. Like that's her thing. That's the thing that she's known for. And by having that relationship, if you know Lovecraft stuff, that would be a joke. If you don't know Lovecraft stuff, it might still be a joke, but you would be like, huh. And if you read Lovecraft stuff, you would come away with it being like, oh, it's the kid one, the one with the kids. I got it.
Well, that's where the another question I was going to ask, which is about the target audience for this book. Is it for that person that has never read Lovecraft as a kind of introduction to the mythos and a way for, like you say, a more palatable way of taking on this very imposing collection of work? or is it for the hardcore Lovecraftian fan? And you can't duck out by saying it's just for everybody who loves comics.
No, I have an answer. It is for, so our fans love that from Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter wanted something that they can share with their kids and people
Right.
that they and people, and so we created this for those people to be able to indoctrinate others into the madness. So it wasn't necessarily for kids or adults. It is for new fans who want a lower barrier for entry book. And what we have found in doing that is by having a more lighthearted or more like introductory level kind of book to people, it very entertains people who love Lovecraft, because the jokes that we just talked about and many others that are about setting up the relation between these gods and humanity and to each other. And they generally have a lot of Lovecraft fans have never read the origin myth before. So like they get something out of it, but it is really for a parent to be able to have something that they can give to their kid to indoctrinate into the madness. Like that's the goal of them all.
That's fair enough. I mean, like I say, I mean, I'm curious to see how this. I'm really up for reading the books, if anything, because I mean, the artwork, as seen in we've got the Kickstarter page up on the screen. We've also got the link as well. By all means, everybody do check out the project. Projects/Russell Nohelty/Cthulhu Battle Royale. I mean, it's obviously been incredibly well received so far. I mean, if I just bring it up for your own reference, because I've got the obviously the British conversion up on my screen, being based where I am, but $3,666. Nice touch. I like that. Converted, it's $21,771 so far. So yeah, you've definitely got a lot of support so far with 37 days to go. So you've definitely got that groundswell of interest. What's been the kind of reaction to the artwork that people have seen so far? Because I know that you can. I mean, actually, if I just scroll it down now, you can actually see a 40-page preview of the book. If you go to the Kickstarter, you've got the sample of all the books as well. What's been the response so far from those people who have perhaps supported you for other projects that have just looked at this and sort of seen what you've presented on the Kickstarter page?
Well, Dan wrote a very nice review of it for you guys, but it's been very so. The thing about anthologies is it will have something for everyone, but it will also have something to turn off everyone if you've done it right, because you want to have a wide plethora of art, and at least I do. So there are anthologies that have very, 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 very similar art styles across all of the stories. And my apologies, it says Darren wrote that. Sorry about that, Dan and Darren. But I wanted to have a lot of different art styles, because my favorite thing about anthologies is finding new artists and new writers. And like, I wanted you to be able to do that with this thing. So I think the people that appreciate that appreciate the book. And also people who understand that, like, you cannot like an art style, but it is still professional and good. Like, a lot of people don't understand the concept that just because I don't like it doesn't mean it is not good art. And so you do get a lot of people when you get the anthologies, like saying, oh, like, I like some of the stories, but the other ones are garbage. And I'm like, well, they're just not your brand of like cool. Like, and like, that's okay. But like, and frankly, like, I put stories in every anthology that like are not my cup of tea. Like, my cup of tea is like big and loud and like funny and like action-packed fantasy things. And like, they're not all like that. And but I like them. Like, I know that they're good. Like, I know that they're good work that like deserve to be seen and like that I want to see in the anthology. And like, I just couldn't imagine not having I love Kelsey Jo Silva and I love Angela's work. Like, I know I said I was big, loud, and like funny, but like theirs was more like soft and and slice of life and charming. And like, but I love their work so much. And I could not imagine not having their work in these anthologies. Like, to me, those stories that they wrote round out the Lovecraft experience, because we talked about Lovecraft's fraught past. And I talk about this a lot. Like, whether you believe, whether you agree that Lovecraft in his later years recanted a lot of the crap that he said, the not great stuff he said in his earlier years or not, there's definitely an undercurrent of those feelings in most of Lovecraft's work. If you like in descriptions of things, like so having different voices for this particular anthology was incredibly important for me. And having people that saw the world in a different way, whether they were woman or BIPOC or LGBTQ, or they just lived in a different place in a different era than Lovecraft. Like, I wanted to have all of them, including like white men, cis white men, but like I wanted all of the people to be represented in some way. And if you're going to represent all of the people, you can't have one art style. You just simply can't have one. It has to be a plethora and a range of art styles that are all good. Like, I have a very good eye. Like, all of the books, all the stories in our books are all like 99.999999999% of the stories are like good art. They may not be your jam art, but like they are good art. And that is a thing that I think that like connoisseurs of comics need to get, and art in general need to get better at. They need to get better at saying, Dolly is someone like, my wife hates Basquiat. Like, I think she is wrong. Like, I love Basquiat, but like, I understand why somebody could not like Basquiat. My wife likes very clean lines. She likes things that, like, she does not like a lot of things open to interpretation in her art. Like, I do. So like, I understand. And she understands that, like, objectively, Basquiat is good art. She just doesn't get it or like it. And like, that is okay. But we need to stop saying that like X book is bad because you don't like the art. Like, there's an objective level of goodness that I bring to the anthology. I hope that like I bring an objective level of goodness, and I want to bring an objective, a varying levels of kinds of ways to tell a story, and kind of ways to tell a story involving the mythos, because this is a celebration of Lovecraft's work, yes, but it's a celebration of the mythos, and and the mythos is much different than, it's almost like a different thing that he did from like the horror stories that he told. Like,
I mean, I think you can, on a technical level, and I think there's some ways, as on a critical level, you can have that bar set, and you can determine some. And certainly, if there's if it's not going to sit in the tone of the book that you're putting together, or sit in the world that you're wanting to create with the anthology, I think there are excuses for not having art or a creative work maybe reach the bar that you're wanting to clear. But when you've got the kind of barometer that you have already, you kind of have already done the hard work by inviting the right people in, as it were. So you've kind of got that. I'm really curious as well about sorry, there was a question I was going to ask about. I mean, the fact that you've actually got the book created. It's already there. It's already, because it's 100% through production. It's more about paying the artists, paying the creatives, reimbursing them for their time and effort. But the work's in. I mean, the book's effectively ready to go. It's just, I think is it production costs?
Yeah, it's printing. It's ready to print. It's production costs to pay the editor and pay all of the people. They've been I usually pay everyone up front for the books. The anthologies are the only time that I kind of pay in arrears because the stories are like 2, 4, 6, or 8 pages. So the stories are all done. Like they've all been into me. They've all been out to reviewers and to ARC readers and to fans. And like, to go back to your, like, most of the people are very supportive of the anthology, like that read it. If they understand that like there's going to be different styles, and I like that, then like they're all of those people like are very supportive. Like, I think that we raise the bar each time. It's hard to say that because I just went back in order to put the books on Amazon now that Comixology no longer exists in any usable fashion.
Yeah.
I remade all of the books so they can upload them to KDP. And I was just looking at the first art, and I was like, wow, like I forget how good the art on the first book or the second book is because I'm on the third book. But like, it's so gratifying to see all of the different art styles and how they work together and how they work to tell like for having like 150, 200 creators on a book, a relatively cohesive story. Because there is a story. Like the first book is the Lovecraftian gods planning to invade. The second book is they invade and take over. The third book is humanity rises up and tries to take back their universe from these, like, that's the overarching theme that happens. And I think that it's really important that when you come to Kickstarter, you have the book done as much as you can.
I mean, that's I mean, I think the two things that have really kind of shown through how you've raised the funds so far is, number one, that you've proven in the past, like I say, you've done this before. You've got form in this, so people know that you will deliver the project. But not only that, but the artwork's done and dusted. It really is a case of production costs to get the book in a physical kind of rendition. I think the question I was kind of leading up to prior was, I mean, I think you were saying that it's an ambitious goal, but I think with the amount of talent that you've got and the people that you've invited onto it, I think 30,000, it's more than achievable. I'm just really curious if where it was a quite distant goal, if you didn't make that target, what would you see happening to the finished work?
Oh, yes. Okay. So in the contracts, it states that if they don't get, if the book doesn't fund, then there's another revenue sharing model that happens, and we put the book on Amazon and Amazon and all of those places, and people get paid out little at a time. This is easily the most that they're going to make. If it doesn't fund, they will make less over a longer period of time as like the book. And the book won't come out in hardcover. It'll come out in like a paperback version. Yeah. It'll come back not in as good a quality. So there are all of these. There are mechanisms, and I have the ability in place to do all of them. But like, you don't want the book the way that it gets printed if like it doesn't hit the goal, because it's going to be like from Ingram Spark. It's going to be like the art's going to be more faded. Yeah. Like, it's just not going to be the same quality that we can do if we do this book. But yes, there is a mechanism if the thing doesn't fund, and people will still be getting paid, just lesser and on a longer time horizon.
Sure. And I think the thing that I was kind of getting, I mean, you're very much talking from a publisher's perspective. You're wanting to make sure that your creatives are paid. I think also the fans would like to see it out there in whatever form, which kind of then also begs the question, because like you say, or like I said, you've got the form with Kickstarter. You've done 21 projects fully funded up to this point, and it's all gone swimmingly. Kickstarter is having its own little conversation at the moment in terms of the way that it's presenting its model. And while we are still kind of waiting on any kind of decision, if they decide to backtrack on any kind of decision they do make, what has been number one, what has been your reaction to Kickstarter's announcement? And number two, what has been the creatives that you've been gotten involved? What has their reaction been to Kickstarter's intended model? How's your relationship to Kickstarter evolved?
So I met with Oriana in the middle of the first wave down in when it was like in December, when they were before they had done their second announcement.
Yeah.
And you know, the long and the short of it for me is like blockchain is not crypto, it is not NFTs. And also the power, depending on the power usage model that they pick, like it could be equal to or less than their entire environmental costs now. Because what people fail to understand is Kickstarter has a lot of environmental costs now, servers and yada yada yada, other stuff,
Sure.
office space, and all of these things. I have not yet. I really wanted that white paper because I wanted to see what their environmental impact differential will be between blockchain and what they're doing now. The other thing is there are a lot of things that are coming up, like Tezos has a lot less power consumption by magnitudes of hundreds less than Ethereum and Bitcoin. And they've already said, Kickstarter's already said they're not going to use Ethereum or Bitcoin. They're going to go to some other blockchain technology if they do that. So like, I don't know what the environmental impact is. I don't know what the technology will end up looking at if they use it. But more important, but also in the fintech space specifically, there are some very good use cases for blockchain, assuming the environmental impact. For instance, how it works for creators and for fans is you give me you pledge money to me, but then it doesn't come out until the end of the campaign, which is a pain on everyone's behalf because you can't plan. Like you have money coming out randomly. I have to go back and try and track down thousands of dollars. With blockchain, you could create a smart contract between you and the person and remove that particular problem. So there's an actual very, very good use case in Kickstarter's specific instance to use blockchain technology. I don't know why they're not talking about that, but like for me, that is the thing that they could solve with blockchain. And if you can solve a huge problem with your tech, which is a huge problem that Zoop and that Indiegogo and GoFundMe and all of these other, they don't have that. You pledge and then you get the money in your bank account like within a couple of weeks from the day that they pledge. So like there's no like this is a very Kickstarter specific problem of the fact that I have hundreds or I'll have $5,000 probably of pledges that error at the end of this campaign. And then I had to spend a whole week like trying to track those people down. And like, if I just could have the smart contract or whatever to get the money now, or at least put the money in escrow, because that's what I want. What I want is Kickstarter to create an escrow account where they hold the money for everyone and they charge them immediately. And if this helps them do that without destroying the environment, like, yes, I want that. I want them to at least explore that. I think that if like for the NFT space and other things like that, I less believe in those things. But again, like NFTs done on Tezos or another platform are hundreds of thousands of times less destructive than Ethereum. So, and there's technology that could come out that is even more for environmentally friendly than what is out there now. So I don't know. What I do know is people
see, it seems like you know more than most. It seems like you've done the research, you've spoken to them directly, and you've made sure that there's if not some culpability, at least there's some justification for their decision and explaining where it goes further forward. So I personally I applaud you for that. That you haven't just kind of gone for the or accepted that knee-jerk reaction, which I can imagine that there's been the prevalent reaction.
Yes, it's been a very prevalent reaction now among creators and backers. There's a very loud Twitter cohort that says they will never back projects again. But like in practice, I'm on Kickstarter right now with a book that in 1 week like did our best launch ever, our best first week ever with the book. So like I'm also wary of that. idea that like they're suddenly going to say, oh, Kickstarter uses blockchain. Because here's the thing. The number one thing that people say is that they do not want people to be able to buy crypto or pay with crypto. But Stripe, the company that Kickstarter uses to process all of the transactions from in 2018 or before 2018 allowed people to pay with Bitcoin. Like Stripe already has allowed this, and like there was nothing. Nobody said boo about it until now. That they stopped in 2018, but Stripe is considering going back to that. So even if Kickstarter doesn't use blockchain or any of that stuff, Stripe could use blockchain, or some other payment processor could use blockchain. And here's the sticky wicket of it is almost all financial tech companies will be implementing some form of blockchain. And that includes Amazon and Walmart and all of those companies, likely in the next 2 years. So are we going to stop the internet? Or are we going to try and just say, here's how we want things to get done? And here's what we're trying to accomplish. And I applaud people who are doing this work and saying and making it loud and hard for Kickstarter to justify and making them justify it. But as a creator, it's very hard to hear, I've backed your campaigns for the next 10 years. I'm not going to buy on your website or Amazon or anywhere else, but I'm also not going to buy on Kickstarter. If I actually believe that those people would then buy the book when it went onto my web store, like we'd be having a different conversation. But like, or like through BackerKit, like they could go and buy it through BackerKit after the Kickstarter campaign and circumvent all of this problem. But like, that is not how people work. They are going to completely abandon all of the creators that they're supporting now. And they're not going to find them on other platforms. And that's going to be very, very hard. So it's a very sticky problem. And there are no good solutions. My thing is that we're having this conversation as if it is Ethereum and Bitcoin that we're talking about, and if it's NFTs we're talking about, and that is just not, never, ever has Kickstarter, as far as my knowledge, talked about NFTs, Ethereum, or Bitcoin. They've never talked about taking crypto. They've never talked about any of the things that people are complaining about, and they have, and all they've said is they're going to do research on this thing. And then if they happen to have something, they have a whole nother spin-off company that's going to happen. And so I understand the knee-jerk reaction, but man, like it's very exhausting. It's very exhausting given all of the other things that are that I know about blockchain and that exist about blockchain that could be good. It's like saying, well, there's a dark web on the internet right now, and IP, then whatever, we're in internet web 2. So I'm not going to use the entire internet because there's a dark web over here that you can get illegal drugs. And like, it's not an entire technology. The entire technology isn't defunct. There are centralized blockchains that have existed for 30 years. The problem is this decentralized blockchain that has de-inflationary practices as a center. And I don't like that. But like blockchain as a rule is like a technology that goes back to the 90s. And frankly, it feels like it goes back to the 90s because I find it antiquated as hell.
I think the thing that has not helped is the way that Kickstarter themselves presented their initial. Well, both announcements I don't think helped at all, because they came across too vague. They didn't nail down what their intentions were, and people, like you say, kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. And I think they just seem to be it's that knee-jerk reaction. I mean, I personally, NFTs I have an issue with. Bitcoin, not so much. Blockchains, it has to be handled right, and as long as the research is done by the right people, and if anything, Kickstarter is a big enough machine to put enough resources into researching it properly, but.
They have a really terrible PR team. Like they've always had a terrible PR team. They may have the may have the worst PR team in tech. But I mean, I'm not a fan of a lot of stuff that like is happening right now in tech. But I think that there are like so you problems with NFTs. Like take the money, take the environmental impact aside now. Like I have a hard time seeing the difference between an NFT and a variant cover because like they both to me are unnecessary environmentally. Like both of them, like you could get the main cover. You get one main cover of a book and like that's what you get. Like that's how novels work. So like why are we like so why do you need 40 covers? And yet on Kickstarter, people are selling 40 covers of a book and people are buying them. And like, I think that's great. Like whatever you're spending your money on, but you can't tell me there's not a massively negative impact of them buying those other 39 books because it has to be printed, which means trees have to be pulped, which means it has to be shipped out, which means there's extra weight. Like there's an and I think, you know, what do they say about the don't yuck my yum? I don't understand NFTs. I don't get it. Like I understand the environmental impact, but if you take the environmental impact part out of this, and aside, there is a component of like it promoting this thing that is like I don't think that the Bitcoin or like crypto is like a very good like as an overall ethos, but like there's a lot of things that are bad as an ethos that like we still let people buy, and like I've started saying like that is that is an idea I don't want to interact with. But like, I also don't very much do many variant covers or any of the other things that like I think are like not my jam. Like, and there's nothing wrong with variant covers. Like, if that's your jam, like go buy as many variant covers as you want. They keep many of my friends employed, so go do it. But yeah, I mean, what's funny is we're kind of having a discussion of why capitalism is dumb, and like I love that conversation. But like it's much bigger than just like blockchain and like the cases that they're making and like having very good cases for like, yeah, well, I mean, I have some thoughts about how our entire monetary system is very much that exact thing, but I'm not gonna like we shouldn't go into all of those. But like so yeah, I don't know. Like I think that the long and the short of it is like I'm staying on Kickstarter. Like I don't know what they're going to like do with blockchain. Like I'm not gonna know anything until they actually do it. Like I want smart contracts. I very desperately want smart contracts because I'm sick of going and chasing people down for like a month after the campaign ends. So there are things that I really like about it. There's a lot of things that I hate about blockchain and all of the things that are built on it, but I'm not going to know more until like they say more. And I hate their PR team. But well, like, I mean, it's not on us. It's not on me, the independent creator, to like do PR for them. It's on me to make books and go places where I think that fans are. And why we can talk about you should bifurcate your audience or trifurcate or do all of this stuff. The fact is, audiences gather in certain places, and if you want to get them, you have to go to those places to find them. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what like we're going to go to Indiegogo, like we're going to go to Zoop, like we're going to go to where we already know Comixology didn't work. Like if it worked, it would still exist. So like Kickstarter is like the place that like you can make these comics. And we have proven that for the last 10 years.
I'm just hoping that if any announcement does come out, that they approach it more sensitively than they have done, because I'm just hoping that it doesn't scare off a huge swathe of A, creatives, B, fans from backing worthy projects. And I'm just hoping that people don't get creatively hurt by just some very poor messaging coming out of the Kickstarter storyline. So tell you what, let's kind of like bring it back to the book, because I usually try and keep it to a nice tight hour, but we've run nicely over. And it's been a fascinating conversation to have with you. We got Dan Berry saying, Battle Royale, plenty of stories you'd expect out of a book about everyone's favorite Lovecraftian subject. But sprinkled amongst those dark stories are a surprising amount of light-hearted affair. I mean, we've got ourselves a review up on the conventioncollective.com if you want to get our thoughts on the book. But I think it's definitely kind of being put to the test with the way that it's been received so far. If we just have a quick look once again at the goal, like I say, we've got 37 to go, with another what? Let's say. How much is left? How much did you say?
It's about
Yeah.
$8,900, something like that. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like
So, I mean,
$9,000 to go.
it's safe to say it's been received nicely, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing the book getting produced. To wrap things up, if you can just kind of also say what's any ideas you have for Cthulhu is Hard to Spell moving forward past this third volume.
Sure. So I'm working on finding a way to continue the series. It will be without me as the editor, but like I think that we have shown that there's the series is popular enough, and still even 5 years on, that like it can draw a crowd. I'm excited to try and find another creative team or a publisher to like move forward with the series if it continues. But like I've made a conscious decision to step away, as I've told everyone like this is my trilogy. Like I've made the trilogy, and I feel like I can't then go around and say like, and here's book 4. So I'm looking for, but people have yelled at me and said I want more of the thing. Like I can't believe you're getting done with this. So like I'm trying to find a way to like straddle both lines and say, well, what if I bring in another creative team and another cover art? Because like I think Aaron is also done with the series. So like Chris, Aaron, and I are kind of like the most continuous forces in the series. So I think it makes sense now. I've done the trilogy that I envisioned in preparing to invade, and then the pushback. And now we can move on to something else if there's something else, or maybe it's the end. I mean, I do think that things should end. Part of me thinks that, and part of me really likes Twisted Dark, the T-Pub series. And like,
Sure.
So I kind of am like, or a counterpoint is like, we could just do what T-Pub does and have Cthulhu is Hard to Spell 100.
Sure. I mean, if there's a model to kind of work on, T-Pub and what Neil does is very much up there.
Yes.
And I think that'd be a great way for the project to move forward, I think.
And I think that it can have different editors like they do, and different things that move on. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. All I know is like we still got $9,000 to go, so like we're very far. But like most campaigns don't raise $9,000 in their whole campaigns. Like we've got like a lot. You've got a long way to go, and you don't have to make a decision now. You can actually go to CthulhuIsHardToSpell.com, and it will redirect and download the samples and see, like, if it's your jam, you'll be able to see kind of whether you like that there's all of these styles. I do think that someone said that this has kind of an oatmeal style art.
Well, yeah, that's what Toby is saying. Yeah, some of the art I've seen on screen here has a lot of the oatmeal style art flavor to it, which looks to add to the humor. So yeah, absolutely. I do like the fact that it's very an approachable project. Like you say, Lovecraft is very dense and very. There's a little bit of gatekeeping just from his own.
He gatekeeped his own work.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a definite way for kicking that gate open and allowing more people to dive in.
And horror and comedy go together like peanut butter and chocolate. So like I think that is that's one of the things that I think has worked in our favor.
Absolutely. Well, like I say, so far, congratulations on what you've achieved so far. All the very best for the rest of the campaign. Kickstarter.com/projects/Russell Nohelty Cthulhu Battle Royale. Where is the best place for people to keep a track on the project? Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Where's the place that you live the most?
I do both. The best is to go to russellnohelty.com and join our mailing list, or if you go to the CthulhuIsHardToSpell.com or the link below and just sign up for either of the things, you'll get notified throughout the campaign. Send an update like once or twice a week with what we're launching, what we're opening, what we're closing as far as perks go.
Excellent stuff. So that is CTHULHUBATTLER. Yeah, Cthulhu is hard to spell. Cthulhu Battle Royale. Do check out the campaign, and you do support the best you can. Like I say, 37 days to go. You've got some time to check out the bonus material and also the teaser material that is available online. Russell, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for kind of being very patient with me and taking a bit of a time to come and talk to us. But it's been a pleasure. And yeah, all the very best for the rest of the campaign, sir.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thanks for having me.
You too. Thank you so much indeed. For myself, Leonard, this has been an incidental episode. We're back again tomorrow as we talk to PJ Holden about The Lion and the Eagle, his project, which he's doing art duties with Garth Ennis for Aftershock. It's a fantastic book and looking forward to talking to him tomorrow. From myself and from Russell, I will also be back on Sunday with Talking Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. Fingers crossed, going to be talking to Tess Fowler, who's going to be joining us. It's going to be a pleasure catching up with her. And as far as I'm aware, we also have Mark Serby, who wants to talk Batman. So yeah, we're going to be getting into that this weekend as well. Take care. Hopefully you'll join us for the rest of the shows. Do, of course, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell below, as you will find out more from our episodes as we go live with another Talking Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. For myself and Russell, we'll see you later. Take care.
Hi, I'm USA Today bestselling author Russell Nohelty, creator of all of this stuff. But today, I'm here to tell you about the third and final volume of my Cthulhu is Hard to Spell anthology series, Battle Royale. Cthulhu is Hard to Spell is my most popular series, and the third volume is just as incredible as the first two. Cthulhu is Hard to Spell Battle Royale features 34 stories from over 70 creators, telling tales about the gods and monsters of the Lovecraft universe. Stories range from cute to scary and everything in between, and just like the first two volumes, Battle Royale is all ages appropriate, meaning you can share it with your favorite Lovecraft fan from 4 to 99. We have stories from creators who've worked for Marvel, DC, Image, Oni, and many more, along with brands like My Little Pony, Invader Zim, and Walt Disney, among others. Kickstarter is the platform that launched Cthulhu is Hard to Spell, so it's only right for us to wrap up the trilogy here as well. In all, you have helped us produce over 100 stories and nearly 500 full-color comic pages celebrating the gods and monsters of Lovecraft's universe. That's absolutely incredible. In this third volume, we also see the end of the arc that started in the first volume. In the first book, the Lovecraftian gods planned their invasion. In the second book, they invaded and took over the universe. And now in book 3, the gods of mythology team up with humanity to try and take back their universe from the Lovecraftian gods that have it in their clutches. I absolutely can't wait to share it with you. If you love the first volume, or if you're here for the first time, I think you're in for a real treat with Cthulhu is Hard to Spell Battle Royale. I hope to see you behind the backer wall.